Alright, so we are back once again, and today we are featuring a ranked game that is actually featuring submarines and carriers, but you know, you can't have everything. Now in this game mode, something interesting, well, not interesting, but one of the things that I thought would be problematic with introducing submarines into ranked is that there would be a lack of surface ships. And in this game, we have basically 5 surface ships, because obviously we have 1 submarine and 1 CV. But what I wasn't really expecting, or from watching a lot of submarine gameplay, I haven't been able to play the game all that much over the past couple of days, just due to the fact that personal stuff has been happening. But what I've been noticing is that a lot of submarine players actually spend a lot of time on the surface. Generally I thought there'd be a lot more time underwater, submerged, but a lot of my fears in that respect of having one less surface ship haven't been all that, played out. So that's something I thought I'd start off with. That being said though, we are playing Ismail, and this is bronze tier ranked, so not all that different to random battles. There's still going to be players doing some questionable stuff, shall we say, and you're about to see some of it right now. Well, not right now, give it a 30 seconds to a minute. Like a carrier flying into everyone's AA. Anyways, we're playing Ismail, probably one of the strongest BBs at this tier. Unfortunately, we aren't at tier 7, so we don't get to break out the Synop, which is pretty much the strongest BB at tier 7, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I think we can make do. That being said, we're going to push up and support our Geta, while our Trento and Boa decide to... okay. At this point in the game, generally you're just looking for broadsides. If there's one thing I've learned from playing in bronze, especially early on in ranked, is that the amount of just broadsiding from pretty much every enemy ship in the game is just so goddamn high. We take a pot shot here at the Devonshire, but as you'll see when we zoom back in, oh look at that, a broadside in Ismail. Who would have thought it? That being said though, I can't really speak myself because I'm also showing broadside, but stuff like this, when you're targeted, is mind-blowing. And I don't know if it points to a lack of awareness, but anyways, we're very swiftly going to punish it. That being said, again, not really sure what our Trento and Boa is doing. I guess I'll keep an update throughout the game. They'll feature in a little while later, shall we say. We do end up pinging the Ismail for a decent amount of damage, about 26k, 2 citadels. Can't complain. Would have been nice to get the dev strike, but again, I'm not going to complain with that amount of damage. That being said, it's always good to keep in mind what the goal is for the game, and obviously the goal is to win, but that can change and morph into many different things throughout the entirety of the game. Right now, we can see the cap situation is definitely not in our favor. Even though we got the kill on the Ismail and another Citadel, we can see that even though the gate is pushed into A, we've lost control over B and we've lost control over C. And this is partially because of our cruisers. You may think that there's no real consequences to pushing wide or that wide and then just randomly turning back in, but there's a time disadvantage, and there's just a show of force disadvantage. If those same cruisers were parked in A, that Geta wouldn't have to leave A to go into B. Then again, I'm not mentioning that the fact that our submarine was AFK for the start of the game. No, that's maybe something we'll bring up in a different video. But anyways, at this point, with our right hand flank completely clear, we decide to push a lot more aggressively. Again, the threat of me taking massive damage is only from generally the Agile, the enemy submarine, and New Mexico. Outside of that, which seems like a lot, there's no real threat. I'm not gonna, eat massive damage from an Boa. I'm not gonna take massive damage from a Devonshire. And generally, as our CV dies, that kind of speechless at that one. That being said though, we're going to continue pushing, and then hoping that we can get a crossfire on enemy ships, which with our Vuzo dying seems a little bit unlikely. Now if you notice again on the minimap, you'll see Araboa and Trento. Although they are absorbing damage from the enemy CV, it's not the most effective thing to do. At this point you want them to turn back in and become central once again to affect the game. That's not what you want to get in ranked games. In ranked games you're going to get maybe a gold tier that can sort of change. Maybe the gameplay gets a little bit better. But this is just going to stuff you're going to have to put up with to the extent as you climb up the tiers and tiers. At that point, this salvo, I was very, very lucky to get away with it, because I generally should have been eating at least 2 citadels right there, for my lack of awareness and not actually angling quickly enough. That being said though, we're going to repay the favor and taking a little bit more of a pot shot at the New Mexico. Now at this point in the game, we do have 2 kills and we get a decent salvo on the New Mexico. So at this point I'm not all that worried about saving a star, so to speak. Generally I think we're pretty fine on that front, because I have got both of the kills on the enemy team. No, at this point we're still very, very cautious about winning, and at this, I think this is something I really want to point out. I have a decision here between shooting at basically the broadside of the New Mexico or turning out to safety. If I shoot at the broadside of the New Mexico, I'm basically going to ground because the turret traverse on the Ismail is so garbage. And so it's a very, very, very interesting decision. Now, if you would have been one of those people like, let's take the damage, or if I would have been one of those people like, let's take the damage, we can do 20k to this New Mexico, we can really punish him. Sure, we get 20k on the New Mexico. He goes down to roughly about 17k. But what happens then when you ground? The agile lines up torps, and a tier 6 PP isn't going to be agile enough, shall we say, to actually dodge those. We have the Devonshire taking pot shots 24/7. We also have a U-69 that we haven't spotted yet, that could be anywhere pinging you and landing 4 citadels from torpedoes. And obviously the New Mexico is going to return fire. So what in that scenario could have seemed like a good decision to maximize damage was actually a good way to get yourself killed pretty quickly. So taking the safest action sometimes is what pays off. Now back to the other side of the map, we do have Araboa and Trento pushing down a CV, which, I don't know if it's just a mindset thing, but people tend to have really weird reactions to seeing CVs pop up on the map. It's almost like a fly to a light or a moth to a light type scenario. As we get pinged by a submarine for the first time, they tend to go all out in terms of like trying to kill them. Whereas I think the appropriate approach is, if he's in your shooting range, shoot at the CV. If he's not, don't spend time chasing him. It's probably just going to distract you from much bigger targets and being much more effective in the entirety of the game. So with that being said, our Trento does kind of get that memo, but Araboa sadly does not, and he decides, along with the CV, to remove himself from the game. Although the CV can actually be effective when he removes himself from the game, the Araboa not so much. And so what this effectively leaves us with is a 2v4, or a 2v5 at this point, but a 2v4 when the arc royal eventually goes down, and having no cap control, being out of position, having no way of spotting, a lot of very, very damaging things for the chances of us actually winning the game. I do try and snipe it from the Araboa because I feel like, why not? But unfortunately that doesn't go to plan, and we still remain with 2 kills. Now at this point, I realize I'm not going to get any spotting from the Araboa. I realize that there's submarines and DDs out there that can pretty much torpedo me with free will. They can get really close. And I realize, with the way the Trento's pushing, that he isn't going to last long. Just because that ship isn't the tankiest, and well, he's going to be perma-spotted because Italian ships tend to have not the best concealment. So we're going to make use of the limiting spotting the Trento's going to give us, and push in and try and save a star. Okay, So that spotting was useful, and yeah, so we're just gonna basically push in. Again, the submarine is pinging me, and there's not really anything I can do. Sure, I can damage con it, but he's effectively just going to ping me again, and make me feel really bad. And this is something I've been thinking about with submarines recently, and bear in mind I've only played 4 or 5 games of ranked where they've actually been in, but there's something very powerless about being 3k from a submarine, or even closer, but not being able to actually do anything versus it. It's a very, it almost feels like being in a DD, and it almost feels like being in a DD and not being able to counter anything, or counter CV fighters back in the day. As we go down here, which is to be expected, to be honest. I think I did try and damage calm one of the pings, but they're on such a short cooldown that it doesn't actually make any difference really, especially at that point in the game. Our bow is going to keep YOLOing about the place and doing stuff, but yeah, I thought this was just interesting. I wanted to go over this game. I think that decision between shooting and kind of dodging out was kind of interesting to show, and yeah, but until the next time, I'll see you all in the next one.